Morning, y'all. Top of the morning to you. Huge fight coming up tomorrow night. Conor McGregor versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone at UFC 246. So I wanted to jump on and just talk about some of the things, obviously, in the build-up we've seen this week on Fight Week in Las Vegas there. Some of the things have been said, what to expect, and some of the sort of narratives going in to this fight tomorrow night. First of all, Ariel Helwani's interview. Go back and check that out because I think, in terms of a lot of the questions coming in here in Fight Week, a lot of them were answered on Monday. Great interview. Ariel left no stones unturned. So props to Ariel for that interview. It was absolutely fascinating over on ESPN. You can get that one on their YouTube channel. Also, want to talk about some implications that I have an agenda, an anti Conor McGregor agenda in terms of his personal and public image here in Ireland ahead of this fight, and I just want to address that it's absolute bollocks if anyone thinks I have an agenda. Listen, I've better things to be doing than to have an agenda. I'm literally just calling it how I see it, how it is, in fact, here. And I think anyone who wants to sort of go along this line and deny that, Conor McGregor's public image isn't diminished here is absolutely deluded. And that's literally the case. I think it reflects, and and you go out, we get asked a lot of things, myself and Pete Carroll, we're out nights out, or our friends, or whatever, in terms of Conor McGregor, and most of the feedback we get is negative. Like 9 times out of 10 it ends negatively, and that's just a fact. Like, I don't like to see it. It's damaging for the sport here, so it doesn't do me a favors. But I think we just have to portray it along those lines and say how it is. So anyone thinks of agenda, you're talking through your arse. Absolute bollocks. End of. Simple. Think what you want. I don't really give a fuck, to be honest with you, but I'm just relaying that because I felt as though I had to, because I don't want my integrity questions when it's just horseshit. And I think, even the UFC see that with the build-up, playing this whole narrative build-up as well. Like, there's no denying that his image is taking a hit, and I think that's very evident with what they've done in the lead up to this fight. You look at the countdown show, everything else that comes with that, and the build up, and I think Conor realizes that as well. No matter he doesn't want to say about it, but look at the respectful build up we've seen this week. When was the last time we saw that in a Conor McGregor fight? He says he's turned over a new leaf. There's a lot of sort of conflicting things there. So, by the way this is sort of panned out this week, you feel as though, and looking at Conor McGregor as a brand, as an image, that he, I think, realizes that they need to do a little bit of work to maybe gain back some of that fan base. Listen, as I said this week, again, interest and traction is very different from popularity, and that's the case here. Listen, Conor McGregor is a intriguing character, and he's done so much for this sport, and people are always going to tune in. It's like the Floyd Mayweather thing. A lot of people never liked Floyd over his career, but he holds the two biggest pay-per-views in boxing, and a number. It's probably more. I'm not even sure, but obviously the Manny Pacquiao fight was the biggest ever. So people tune in because they don't like him. They want to see him get beaten. So listen, Conor McGregor is obviously still a draw, but interest is very different from popularity and traction. So that's my take on that. I don't want to get that going for too long, but that's just the facts. It really is. Okay, Ariel's interview, as I said there, excellent stuff. Go back and check that out. Just interesting, I think, the whole narrative and some of the things that were sort of said this week, and maybe things we haven't really sort of delved into, and a lot of questions have been aimed about sort of the crossover thing. And listen, that really sort of bothers me. I think we just forget about this. We've Conor McGregor back in the UFC, first fight in 15 months. There's a lot of questions we need answering in terms of what he's going to do in the cage on Saturday night. It's only his second fight since obviously UFC 205. There's a lot of unknowns here in that performance against Habib. He was self-admitted that he didn't train properly. He was drinking, the week before that fight. Very different Conor McGregor, coming in here against Cowboy. We know from being here in Ireland that he's been training, back in the gym pretty much since May, June. And one of the things that really hasn't sort of been picked up and talked about is his left hand. He broke his left hand in May. And, that was really interesting for me because he talked about yesterday at the media scrum that he was potentially going to fight Justin Gaethje. That obviously never came to fruition, but he didn't say the reason why the fight never happened. And the reason why the fight never happened was because of broken hands. So I think that's an interesting one to look out for in the fight on Saturday night. If you look at the embedded series, the hand's been obviously strapped quite heavily, as it always is, in fairness. Don't we should read too much into that. But, anyone who breaks a hand, it's going to be really interesting to see how that translates on fight night, because, in combat sports, hand injuries are one of the most problematic things that happen. So that's an interesting element I think we need to look out for. They sort of really haven't talked about it an awful lot in the build-up, and rightly so. They don't want to talk about that, because obviously, it's an injury, and fighters don't want to talk about injuries. I think that's fair enough from Team McGregor. Also, I think interesting enough was the fact Conor McGregor said he was looking to acquire rounds, and I found that's a dangerous game to play, especially like a guy like Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who does start a fight pretty slowly. He's a history of that. I think we saw that in his title fight against RDA, where he self-admittedly suffered with nerves and anxiety going in. And I was at that fight that night in Orlando, Florida, in the Amway Center, and he got destroyed in that fight. And I think if Conor wants to let him come into the fight, and Conor's happy to acquire rounds, that's going to give Donald more of a chance. It is a dangerous game to play. It really is, because Cowboy does start slow. We saw it against Darren Till. Darren Till pretty much demolished him. I think that's a template that Conor is going to look to take in this fight. So that's an interesting one. At some point, if Cowboy can sort of grind on Conor against the fence, and I don't expect to see an awful lot of that, but maybe he could shoot a takedown, because he's, his takedowns really, I don't think we're going to see a lot of that in the center of the cage. He's not particularly good at shooting in the center of the cage. I think Conor's takedown defense is too good. But if he does find himself, on his back in the fight, he's a very, very dangerous man on the ground. So that's going to be a really interesting facet to see in this fight and the build up to that. So that's definitely one to look out for. In terms of Conor as well, I think it's a real good thing that he's gone and brought in Phil Sutcliffe, his old boxing coach from Crumlin Boxing Club, in the build up to this fight. It does sort of go along the lines of what Conor was saying, with a fresh start, going back to your roots, getting that feeling and getting that old feeling as why you started out in the sport. I think that's very, very important, and it's rejuvenating almost to a certain extent, I think, for a lot of fighters when they do that. And you often see that later in the fighter's career, that they'll go back to their roots, go back to guys they've originally worked out with and train with early in their combat sports careers. So interesting one there. I think it spells nothing but good things for Conor's boxing, but it is an interesting element again, because I think there is so many questions we need answering, and I think we're obviously going to get them tomorrow night in Las Vegas. Okay, I want to talk about Cowboy. Very interesting this week. His mindset from what we've seen at the press conferences. Very chilled out, very relaxed. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We'll obviously see tomorrow night, but he sort of seems to be soaking everything up, enjoying it. That's cool, that's fair enough. But the one thing that sort of surprised me in the press conference, from what we saw a number of years ago at that quarterly press conference where he told him to shut up, and there was a bit of back and forth with him and Conor. So that was very interesting to me, and to see him so almost really in awe of Conor, very thankful. He said he was for Conor picking him, and then how much good things he's done for the sport. It was just a little bit weird for me, and I think Conor might be playing a little bit of a psychological game. He did mention that yesterday, and didn't go into too much detail about it in the media scrum there out at the UFC's, I think it was their HQ yesterday. So that was an element, I think, that is also interesting. The fact that Conor might be playing a game here, a psychological game, in terms of the real niceties in the build up to this. So again, man, questions we need answering, and I think it's going to be fascinating tomorrow night. Listen, Cowboys, people are looking at this as, he's obviously a dangerous opponent, but let's be honest, when we're looking at this fight, I think a lot of people, and the majority of people, are expecting Conor McGregor to go through Cowboy here. And I don't think you can look against that. Cowboy has won, 4 of his last 10 fights, coming off 2 losses. Obviously, the opponents have been, high quality, very, very good opponents. But if Conor wants to stay relevant and he wants to, go on and maybe fight Habib, he's mentioned obviously Usman saying at 170, he has to win this fight. And he doesn't have to win this fight. He has to make a statement in this fight. It has to be done early. It has to be done quick. Because, as much as I love Cowboy, he's never headlined a UFC pay-per-view, which I think is really, really interesting. And, being around for so long, never have done that in the UFC. All the bonus records he has, performance records, the amount of fights he's had. It's just mental to think that he's never actually fought in a pay-per-view main slot. The pressure is going to be obviously not on him, but it's going to be interesting how he reacts being on that spotlight. Fascinating elements in this fight, but it is a fight Conor should win, and I do expect him to win it. I think if he's going out there, I said he needs to make a statement. I just think he's going to go with along the lines of the Darren Till template, his template that he's used in the past, something like the Brandao fight. I just don't think Cowboy's going to be able to deal with that pressure early on, and I think we could see a finish within 2 rounds. He's going to cut the angles, not let Cowboy get any room to start using his combinations and kicks, and I think that's crucial in this fight. And I think if Conor lands once, and it's going to be interesting to see when he does land, how that left hand holds up, and I think it will hold up. Conor has looked incredible physical condition coming into this, seems rejuvenated, seems focused, seems hungry. It's an interesting fight, but I'm expecting nothing but a Conor McGregor win. I think if Cowboy is to win, as I said earlier on, it is off his back, but I just don't see how he gets Conor McGregor to the ground in this fight, because Conor's takedown defense is good, and I think there's only certain areas where we can see Cowboy get a takedown against the fence. I just don't expect Conor to let the fight go there or get in that position in order to be vulnerable against that. So I'm expecting 2 rounds of this fight. I'd be surprised if it goes outside of 3, and I'm expecting a Conor McGregor knockout. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions answered on Saturday night, and I think it's going to be interesting to see then. Conor's talked about a quick turnaround, so let's see. Lots of things we'll learn on Saturday night. And listen, yes, disappointed I'm not there this week. I'd love to be over there, but the lads doing a great job on the ground there. Pete's doing some great work. The lads at MMAfighting.com. We'll be back. I'm not sure if I'm on next week on Eurobash, but the lads will be banging out an episode on Monday. So yeah, enjoy the fights. Just want to get a few words out there and I'll have a little chat about it. So obviously goes down tomorrow night. I think it's kicking off 11:30 fight pass prelims, 1 a.m. prelims. And then obviously the main card kicks off at 3 on BT Sport if you're in UK and Ireland, on their pay-per-view service, and obviously on ESPN Plus in the United States. So I'll probably drop back in on Sunday, have a little bit of chat, reaction from the fight card. Might do something live. So yeah, listen, enjoy the fight card. Have a good one. Have a good weekend, and chat soon.